Great. All righty. Um, happy to see all of you and to welcome some of the others who may be coming on. So today we are looking at chapter four of Pirke Avot, chapter four. You'll see it on our WhatsApp group. It's a little higher than what you had to click to get on for this. It's chapter four, Mishnah or teaching number two. And there's a lot to say about this. There's a lot to say about each teaching. Um, but here, the author of this teaching is a great sage named Ben Azai. Ben Azai. He was considered to be almost as influential and scholarly as Rabbi Akiva, which is big. That's a big that's an Emmy Award. Rabbi Akiva is an Emmy Award, uh, and or maybe it's more appropriate to say an Academy Award because he was in the academies. And his lessons of Ben Asai have been studied often, and he has a lot to say, especially in the following teaching. The truth is, he has a message for the Jewish people, but it's a message that can be transformative in any faith community. So, like all of Pirkei Avot was written by Jewish people quoting Jewish sages. And what we are doing in our series is extracting teachings that really can apply to any faith community. So it's not restricted to the Jewish community. It emanates from and is perpetuated mostly by the Jewish community. But as we have seen, and I hope you've seen that, so many of the lessons that we review are really great lessons, moral, ethical, and otherwise, for anyone, especially those who come from a strong faith community. So every faith community has its values, its rituals, traditions, and a hierarchy of what's considered more important and less important. But that I say that very carefully. What's considered more important and less important? Is it easy to know what is really more important or less important? So, for example, we have in the Jewish tradition 613 mitzvot. A mitzvah is a commandment, literally a commandment. We have 613 of them. Um, is it easy for us to know which is a more important mitzvah or a less important? Is there a hierarchy? Some would argue yes, and some would argue no. They're all equally important, and you have to take them all very seriously. So here's a teaching from Ben Azai. He has an instruction that we might not have thought of if he didn't actually express it. And he says the following: run to do even a minor mitzvah. Run. In other words, you get the opportunity to do what you perceive is a minor mitzvah. Run to go ahead and do it. So let's take a wider lens on this idea of a mitzvah and ask ourselves, what is it? What actually is it? Is that a Jewish thing? Well, it's called a mitzvah, but it doesn't necessarily apply only to Jewish people. Every religion has what they consider their foundational principles, their foundational instructions. For the Jewish people, there are 613 of them. Within the Noahide community, there are seven, which some authors about them and some commentators have actually found 66, not just seven within the Noahide community, but actually about almost 70 different laws for the Noahide community to immerse itself in. But for the Jewish people, the Torah, the five books of Moses, starting from creation, ending with the burial of Moses, we have extracted 613 mitzvot. 600. Guy, how are you? Nice to see you.
Great. Good.
Good,
Great to
good,
see
good.
you. Nice to see you too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I
Shalom.
appreciate it. So we just began with a teaching of a great scholar named Ben Azai, and his teaching, we just started it, so good. His teaching is that you run to do even a minor mitzvah, even a minor um, commandment of God. So, in our tradition, the Jewish tradition is 613 commandments in the five books of the Torah, the five books of Moses. There are 248 you should do the following, and 365 do nots. So interesting that there are more do nots than there are do's. 248 versus 365 don't do's. Some people will say that's such a Jewish thing. Every day of the year there's something not to do. Yeah. Every day of the year somebody's wagging there. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, interesting. I don't know if I'd go there, but I guess I just did. So, included in the Ten Commandments, there are 613 other directives, which actually some Torah scholars have taken the Ten Commandments and have shown sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's threadbare connection. They have shown a connection in those 10 to include all the 603 other commandments. I mean, that's a major piece of work to say that you can find within 10 all the 603. Sometimes it's a stretch, sometimes it's pretty direct, but there are those scholars who have done that kind of work. 613 commandments about all aspects of life as we understand um, as we understand them. Some laws pertain to men, some to women, some in Israel, some are agricultural laws, some pertain to only the Kohen or the Levi, the higher functionaries, if you will, in the Holy Temple. Some pertain to the temple when it stood, the temples. Um, it covers a wide gamut of all kinds of laws, legal laws, etc. The lives of our venerated ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, their wives, Moses, Aaron, Miriam, and so many more. Interestingly enough, not every Torah scholar from the past agrees on the 613. So Maimonides might have his list of 613. Another great scholar from way back might have his list. But if you were to say to me, how many of them really would include the same, but there's some different, I would say easily 95% all agree on the basics. And then they might disagree on some of the on 5% of this one includes that, but this one doesn't. Um, a prominent disagreement among scholars is somebody like I think it's Maimonides, Rambam, who doesn't seem to explicitly say that living in Israel is a mitzvah. I think it's Maimonides and Nachmanides, not the same person, Nachmanides and Maimonides. They lived decades apart. Nachmanides, I think, says yes. God says over 100 times in the five books of Moses, this is the lamb that I prefer for my people. So that's a major disagreement. Is it a mitzvah to live in Israel, or is it not? Is it a good idea, or does it hit the level of a mitzvah? Um, so that's something to kind of keep in mind, that not all the scholars agree on which are actually the 613. But again, 95% are agreed upon. So that's still a bigger number. So Ben Azai has this message for the Jewish people, and it's a universal message. Run to do a minor mitzvah, mainly because you don't know, as a reader of the Torah, which is a minor one and which is a major one. Now, if every mitzvah had its reward, or if every negative commandment had its punishment, if you will, that would make things a lot easier. But there are only a handful of mitzvot, of commandments, that actually have a reward attached to it. So what Ben Azai would say, let's take a look at two prominent mitzvot that have uh, stated rewards in the Torah. One of them is honor your father and your mother. And in the Torah, it says what the reward is, so that your life may be lengthened upon the land that I have given to you and to your people. So, uh, honoring your parents gets that reward. Another mitzvah that gets a similar reward of long life, and here there's a difference of opinion, long life in this world or long life in the world to come. But another mitzvah that has as its reward an extended life is the mitzvah of shooing away the mother bird. So if you chance upon, you're walking on the way and you chance upon a nest, you, for one reason or another, really, really need the eggs for food, whatever, but you really need it. You can shoo away the mother bird and take the eggs, and that also has a reward of an extended life. So Ben Azai would say, wow, these are two very prominent extremes. Honoring your mother and your father is very hard. I mean, we may have our own conception of what does it mean to honor mom and dad. But from the Jewish perspective, there are so many different laws and considerations about what does it mean to honor, to respect, to hold them in awe. What does that mean? There are many considerations about that. Um, on the other hand, shooing away the mother bird, unless you're a person who feels very empathetic about shooing away the mother bird, it- this is not a hard thing to do, is to wave your hand and shoo away a mother bird. So Ben Azai would say, if you look at one of the hardest commandments to honor properly your mother and your father, and that gets a reward of long life, and shooing away the mother bird, which sounds very simple, you just wave your hand and they flop around and off they go. If one of the hardest commandments to keep and one of the easiest commandments to keep both have the same reward, Ben Azai would say to us, now we're kind of in a quandary. What really is the reward of any other particular mitzvah? So he says, run even to do what you would consider a minor mitzvah. Run to it. So um, grab the opportunity. Carpe mitzvah. I guess you would say in Latin. You know, they have the phrase carpe diem, grab the day. He would say carpe mitzvah. Grab that mitzvah if it comes to you. Don't let it just sit there and lie there. Grab it and go do it. So we can figure out a couple of reasons why he has this teaching. By the way, I have this volume here. This is something I study with a study partner weekly. Here is, I don't know if it comes out correctly when you look at it. Here's a book of the commandments, and you see that these are the negative commandments. This volume is the thou shalt nots. So of course it has a companion volume of the thou shalts. We finished that volume, and now we're kind of almost all the way through this one. So there are many, many books you can get on what are the 613 and how do they break down into the positive ones, the negative or restrictive ones, etc. So um, again, Ben Azai would perhaps give you two reasons why you need to grab the moment to do even what you consider to be a minor mitzvah. And reason number one, he says, hey, don't think that way. Don't categorize as easy and hard, since you don't know the rewards or benefits of any particular mitzvah unless it's stated in the Torah, and very few are stated. The minor one may have huge rewards. For example, for a Jew, keeping kosher seems as though it has huge rewards. Why? There's a lot in the Torah about what is a kosher animal, what's a kosher bird, what's a kosher this, kosher fish, etc. It's not that much, but it's pretty prominent. The laws of keeping kosher are somewhat prominent in the Torah. So you would imagine I got to be careful about that because that's got huge rewards. But you know, if I insult somebody, if I say something that's not exactly nice to somebody, um, uh, I belittle somebody in public or I insult, whatever, that maybe that's not so bad because the Torah doesn't speak a lot about that. So you wouldn't be moved to say, I can be a little bit more liberal with that. And the answer, Ben, as I would say, is no, no. It's not your perception of what it is. God has given the whole gamut of them, and perhaps they are all equally important. And he would say, run to do a minor mitzvah. Why? It will habituate you to do more commandments. And we talked about this, I think, last week or the week before. There's some things that we do tiny that grease the wheel to accustom us to do more each time. So we may have talked about children, Jewish children going to Hebrew school or their Jewish education, and their parents urge them to take a coin or two to put in the charity box when they get to the school. And many classrooms have a charity box. And the teachers say, now is time to give tzedakah. And that's what they pull out of their pocket, their little zippered whatever, and they drop it in. So you say, what's a penny or two? What's a shekel or two in a coin box? And the answer is now it's a shekel or two, but as they get older, it'll be a 5 shekels or 10 shekels or $3 or $5. It's a matter of habituating. You habituate. So even if you consider something to be a minor mitzvah, run and grab it because it'll habituate you to do it more and more often, and it will um, grease the wheel for you to get more and more involved in doing commandments in general. So very, very interesting. He has a psychological insight from 2,000 years ago that is still true today, namely that one mitzvah leads to another. And he mentioned this in his teaching. One mitzvah leads to another, and one sin can also easily lead to the next sin. Because the reward for a mitzvah is not only whatever the reward is either stated or imagined, but the reward for a mitzvah is the opportunity to do another mitzvah. So Ben Azai would say to you that when you do a mitzvah, God will place the next opportunity for you to do easily another mitzvah. And if you do that, then God will place an opportunity for you in your path to do yet another mitzvah. The only problem is that it also, Ben Azai says, it works the other way too. That if you have a difficulty controlling your passions and you do one sin, God will place in your path another opportunity to sin. He hopes that you won't. He hopes that you'll be stronger than that sin. But so there is a teaching, I forget where it is, maybe in Proverbs, that says in the way that a person wishes to go, God kind of helps them on that path, which, if it's positive and a good path, that's great. God helps me to do the next good thing. If it's giving into a passion that's not so great, God will give you the next opportunity, and now you have to fight again to be strong and not give into that passion. So Ben Azai, he says again, run to go do even a minor mitzvah. But the bottom line is, he says that fulfilling God's instructions should feel good. You should feel good about it, whether it's a minor one or what you consider to be a major one. It should feel good and satisfying and soulful and sweet. So if one finds themselves doing various commandments um, of whatever faith tradition, faith community, and they're not really enjoying it, they don't feel fulfilled by it, they don't feel it's speaking to them. People have come to me over the years as a rabbi. They say, what do I do? I'm doing them. I'm trying to do them. This is the way my parents taught me. It's how I live my childhood years, and now as an adult, it just doesn't sing to me anymore. So we talk about that. Why doesn't it sing, et cetera, et cetera. And then I tell them to kind of restart slowly. Restart slowly. Take the line of the Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and try to find 5 times during the day to say it with concentration. It's small. Start small. And I assure them, as though I have the ability to do this, I assure them that God is with you. He's with you even if you start tiny and you're worried, oh, what about all the other things I'm not doing? Okay, God is patient. He's told us in the book of Exodus in chapter 30, whatever it is, I am I'm long suffering, I'm patient, I can be with you. Take your time and find a way to love it. Find a way to love all these mitzvot. There's a scholar named Dr. Isaac Cardozo in the 17th century. He says, to those who don't love God's word, even 6 commandments are as burdensome as 613. But to those who love God's word, 613 commandments seem as easy as just 6. So it depends on the attitude, it depends on the mental environment and atmosphere. Um, so again, when it comes to have a chance to fulfill God's word with a mitzvah, gather speed, says Ben Azai, run towards it, love it, feel good about it, embrace it, and value it. But there's the caveat that if you do sin, that next opportunity may come your way only too quickly. Only too quickly. So just be careful about how you value or ascribe value to a mitzvah. One good deed leads to another, and one not so good deed can also lead to the next one. And we're in control of what we'd like to do. God gives us the place and the moment to do another good deed or another not so good deed. And we try to run to do the good. Is this easy? I'll t- no, this is not easy. Takes a lot of spiritual work, but with God's help, as in everything, we can succeed. Um, I'll just mention one more thing and then open it up for any questions, comments, reactions. The term mitzvah literally is one of the 13 commandments, but it has become a wider applied idea. So, for example, today my wife and I we went to fill up her car with gas, and somebody taps the window, and they say, "Excuse me, do you have a jack? Uh, we need to put on a different tire, and the garage there is closed, and whatever. Is there a jack that you might have?" I said, I don't know what's in my wife's trunk, but take a look. They saw there's a jack. 10 minutes later, the owner of the car comes back. Thank you so much. They said in Hebrew, you did a great mitzvah. Now, I don't know jack about changing tires. I really don't. But uh, is that one of the 613? Thou shalt help your neighbor change their tire? You're not going to find it, guaranteed. 5,888 verses in the Torah, you're not going to find it. But the idea of it has been kind of extended that any good deed we do help somebody who needs a ride, help somebody who needs a this or needs a that. That we also call a mitzvah, even though it's not officially part of the catalog of the 613 commandments. So let me leave it open now. And if anybody has any comments, questions, reactions, commentary, happy to hear it.
Well, I guess I have something.
Good, good, good.
I know when we read in English, it like for instance the word transgression, it's used differently here than sometimes we use it in other ways. So I know here it's avera or ha-avera, the
Avera,
translation.
Avera, right?
Yeah, avera. So and a lot of times it's avon. which is more iniquity, more of a sin type thing, right? So I think it's important for us to learn a little bit of Hebrew, right? So we can see the difference, because I can read transgression here and read it somewhere else and read it somewhere else and apply one meaning to it, but it might not have that exact meaning. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, yeah. Because in Hebrew, by the way, it says on my screen here, Zoom you. Oh, okay. Good. Okay. I'm just wondering who that was. Now we know. Um, yeah. In Hebrew, you have various words for sin. You have Avera. You have the word chet. You have the word avon. You have the word pesha.
Mhm.
And there are a few other words that relate to sin. Um, Could I give you right now on one foot, so to speak, the shades of difference? Probably not. But I can say that it relates to the idea of how willful was any of that? How willful was your transgression? So if it's intentional, it might have one Hebrew word. If it's something that was you misunderstood, you didn't know about it, you didn't know but that was a sin, that could have another Hebrew word. If you knew that that was a sin, but you didn't know the punishment of it, or you had no idea, that could be another Hebrew word. If it was totally unintentional, that could have another Hebrew word. Another aspect that might apply is not only intentionality, but there's the aspect of how easy is it to wipe away that sin with one's um, repentance? How easy is it to kind of erase it? So, it's like a stain. Let's say it's a stain. So, some stains are easily removable. You have a stain on your shirt, you give it to the cleaners, and they tell you, look at it. Are you satisfied? Whoa, where I can't find it. Like I don't know where the stain went. So that sin represented by that stain might have a certain Hebrew word that describes that it's easier to repent or similar for that. But sometimes you'll get a shirt back from the cleaners and they'll say, we got it all out, but there's still a residue that we don't have the right chemical, whatever. So it can still have a residue, and that might be harder to kind of wipe the slate clean on that particular sin. So all of that has a lot to do with which Hebrew word would apply to what kind of a situation. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Oh, that's great. It made no sense in my head, but no, it did.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, those are kind of like the gradations, and that's a good question. There are several words describing sin, and what's the difference? So that's the general idea of the differences. Yeah. Anyone else have something you'd like to share? Question, comment? Happy to hear it. Okay.
A question.
Yeah. Somebody had
Um,
it. Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
um, we, basically everybody in this room except for yourself, I would say we're all exiles in exile, right?
As described by what, in your words?
As described in Torah.
Oh, so you're assuming that everybody on this screen, except me, is exiled from Torah.
No, exile. Yes, okay, exiled in Torah, from Torah, correct.
So just
By
say
being
one
that
more.
we're
Go ahead. Sorry.
being that we're in the land of the enemy, and so my, because of the sins of our fathers,
Okay.
okay, um, shouldn't our focus be on the mitzvahs that are concerning exiles? In other words, none of us are rulers. So we don't really need to concentrate on that. None of us are women. We don't need to concentrate on that. There's got to be some of these mitzvahs have got to be slated for exiles. Um, so shouldn't that be our focus?
I'm not sure I'm getting exactly what you mean.
Well, I don't need to learn about, I know about the rules for the rulers. Okay. Do I know it, verbatim and everything else? No, I don't. There's some that are of the mitzvahs that apply to everybody, regardless of whether you're a ruler or a woman or a man or a slave, whatever. Okay.
Hmm. Okay.
But you can, I see it as a ruler is supposedly in the land, right? And this is talking about there's rules, mitzvahs for men who are in the land. And then we have,
Or
um,
even not in the land.
well, that's the where I'm going, not
Oh,
in the land. That's for exiles, right? So shouldn't that be our focus? Learning, really get that down, so to speak.
so in okay, I'm still trying to get exactly to what you're speaking to, and maybe there's others who may be getting exactly what you're speaking to and can say it in a way that I'm able to better understand what you're saying. Everything that we've learned so far and everything that we will continue to learn, God willing, applies to, let's say, within the Jewish community, applies to anyone and everyone, no matter where they live. Like of the 126 teachings that we find in the 6 chapters of the Ethics of the Fathers,
Okay.
there, I don't remember anything that particularly addresses individuals who live in the land. This is like general ethical, moral principles and teachings that apply to the Jewish community, no question, but it has universal value and appeal.
Okay.
But none of the 126 refer in any way to this is just for people in the land. This is for anyone and everyone in North Pole to Boca Raton.
Okay. I
Does that
understand that.
does that clarify? Or maybe I'm
Yeah.
still, it does?
I mean, no, I understand. That's for everybody. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is for people who are on their life's journey. How do you maximize your connection with God? How do you maximize your connection with what He feels, how to behave, how to be, how to speak, how to think, how to talk, how to direct our energies, how to feel a sense of mission. So in that sense, it really speaks to one and all, wherever they are,
Okay.
wherever they live geographically and wherever they are spiritually. These are all life enhancing teachings,
Okay.
primarily by Jews for Jews, but we see that there is wide application is universal.
Okay. So I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole. So
But
wanted
I haven't seen a rabbit yet.
okay.
But was that on any level satisfying?
Um,
You can say no.
I'm,
Hey,
no, it gives me something to ponder upon.
uh,
Okay.
hey,
Okay.
Rabbi, I think I understand the question that he's trying
Good,
to
good.
ask.
Let me hear it,
Is
Scott.
there,
Right. I
are
just want to
there
say
a,
hi to I want to say hi to Robert. How are you doing?
Hello, sir. How you doing?
Thank God. Good, good. Okay,
Amen.
Scott, help me out here.
are there a list in the 613 mitzvah that are specifically aimed towards those in exile?
Um,
I'm sitting here trying to think, and I can't think of any that are directly. I know there's some that are specifically for those in Eretz Israel, but not necessarily in the Gula.
so there's nothing that I could think of that addresses people in redemptive times, because the five books of Moses, the Torah, hardly, except by a hint or two, hardly addresses what we would call in Hebrew Geulah, the redemption, messianic days. There's two or three hints that some of our commentators point to, but there's a paucity within the five books of Moses that address any existence beyond the current, whatever current is, 2,000 years ago, now. So of the 613, I'm trying to think of how many mitzvot, how many commandments relate specifically to Jewish people living in Israel. There are dozens, but I can find out. It's a Google. How many of the 613 apply only in the land of Israel?
Right.
The others really apply to anybody, anywhere else, except for a school of scholars who say that when God commands anything in the Torah and it doesn't address those living in the land of Israel, every mitzvah that is done outside of Israel is only a practice and has less value than if it were to be done in the land of Israel. There's a school of thought, prominent, not prominent, I don't know if I can tell you. But there's a school of thought that says, here I am, I'm drinking a cup of coffee. Before I had my first sip, I made a blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, who created everything according to his will. And then I'm drinking. So, well, okay, I'm in the land of Israel, but let's say I was in Crown Heights. I was in Brooklyn. So there's a school of thought that would say, if you did that in Israel, that would be a 10, because you're doing it in the place that God intended you to do that. But you're doing it in Baltimore. That's now a 6. That's a 6. You're practicing. You're practicing.
If you do it in Miami, it's a 4.
If you do it where?
In Miami, it's a 4.
But it's a pleasant 4. It's a very
It
nice.
goes downhill from there.
Right, right. It's a well-heated 4. Yeah. Bob, what did you want to say?
Um, I'm trying to think of Guy's question too, and the only thing I could think of is if we had a temple,
Yes.
then the only thing that you wouldn't do out of the land could only do in the land would be sacrifice. You couldn't do it out of the land.
Right. Sacrifices that were done in the temple could only be done in the temple, or could only be done in Jerusalem, or could have,
Yeah,
but certainly not out of the boundaries of the land of Israel. No, no.
right.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I could think of.
yeah, yeah. But is there anything particularly in the 613 commandments that addresses itself to people who are not in the land? Well, I mean, there may be parts of the Torah that addresses itself to individuals who are not in the land, but God, through the commandments, urges them to get yourself into the land. Because there's a good 100 references in those five books that talk about God's preference for the Jewish people as part of their mission to be in the land. It's what we would call the three P's. God created a people with a place with a purpose. And all of that is dependent one on the other. The people in a place, namely Israel, with a purpose. And they're the people and the place, the purpose is best fulfilled in the place, with the people in the place having a purpose. So, um, does that clear anything? Anything more than anybody wants to say about this? Happy to hear it.
Rabbi, I did chat GPT and it
Thank you
says
so much. Thank you. In two
I don't
more
know,
weeks, you won't need me. So keep doing that.
I don't know if it's correct or not, but 26 of them, it says, out of the 613 are dependent upon the land because of tithing and what Robert said as well, the temple and so forth. And then it says, no, any mitzvah that is dependent on the land is only observed in the land of Israel. Any mitzvah that is not dependent on the land is observed both in the land and outside it, except for Orlah and Kilayim. That's from Mishnah Kiddushin 1:9.
Thank you. Yeah. So those two terms are related to agricultural things. That you can't pick of the fruit in its first 3 years. It's an agricultural term. Yeah, but that I'm surprised it's only 26. I thought there was a slew of them, but okay. But that second part relates to what we've been discussing. Other than the ones that need to be done in the land, the rest of it applies to anybody, anywhere, specifically Jews. But what have we been doing the last few months is seeing the universal application of many of the mitzvot. Anything else anybody would like to say about what we learned or what Guy has brought up? Happy to hear it. So moved. Okay, we'll look at the next one. The next one is chapter 4, Mishnah or teaching number 4. Chapter 4 or Mishnah teaching number 4. So when you think of the people who surround you, I'm not saying here on this call, so, because we're not really surrounding each other except, our little pictures on a frame. We think of your family, your friends, your neighbors, coworkers, fellow worshipers, and others. Are you surrounded by people who are humble or haughty? So I'm not asking you to answer that, although if you like, you can. People who are overstated or understated or arrogant. When you think of people in government, for example, politics, sports, finance, even clergy in your faith tradition, do you think of them as self-aggrandizing or quietly doing their good works? The average person probably has a mix. Yeah, I know some people who are like really very quiet about what they do. They do great stuff. You never hear about it, but we know what they do behind the scenes and they're wonderful, etc. And there are some people who are very loud about their achievements, donations, etc. So what's that got to do with anything? Nothing so far until we get to the punchline of this teaching. This teaching is presented by Rabbi Levitas of Yavne. Yavne, a city that's about an hour and a quarter from here in Israel. Rabbi Levitas of Yavne. He has a definite idea and teaching on how to project ourselves and how others should see us and assess us. And this is interesting. The only time that Rabbi Levitas of Yavne is mentioned in all of the Mishnah or oral tradition. Imagine that. There are many great scholars and rabbis who are mentioned very often. And this particular one, Rabbi Levitas of Yavne, is mentioned one time in the entire corpus of the oral law. Thank you for not asking me why would he not be more often quoted, or why was he particularly chosen for this particular teaching, which we're going to look at in a moment. Is his teaching so unusual? Have we not heard it before? Is it something that is eye-catching? And the answer is not particularly. It's not particularly eye-catching. And when I read it or when you see it, you'll go, oh, we've had this. We've had this idea before. Here's his teaching. He says, one should be extremely, extremely humble. So you say, wow, that's a new one. That's a new one. Wow. We should be humble. Okay, Rabbi Elon, let's move to the next one because we heard it. We've heard it. So he says, be shefal ruach. Shefal ruach is a term that you don't hear that often, and maybe that's why his teaching was included here in Pirke about the ethics of the fathers. Shefal ruach indicates a certain level of consistent humility, not necessarily when you've done something wonderful and people want to acknowledge you and they're reading all about you and you say, oh, thank you. You don't need, that's enough. That's really enough. So maybe in that instance, you're feeling overwhelmed with that and you want to assert some level of humility, but shefal ruach is really more of a consistent, you're working on having a consistent humility, to be very, very humble. And he says, why? Why should you work on being exceedingly humble? He uses the words in Hebrew, ma'od, ma'od. Ma'od means very. And in his teaching, he repeats it, ma'od, ma'od, which means you really have to work extra hard to be consistently humble. Not easy. And why? He says, because the end of mortal man is the worm
Mhm.
or the grave. Now, that teaching we've had before. Uh, I think it was in the second chapter of Pirke Avot. I can't quote it exactly right now, but it also said, "Don't be such a huh," because uh, everybody has the same end. Nowadays, not everyone is in the grave, but none of us uh, is likely to leave alive. I don't want to put a downer on this. I'm just saying, you know, the record the record shows that very few of us leave this existence alive. So he mentions that, I think, because he wants us to he wants to help us to feel that working on our humility, ma'od ma'od, very, very much working hard on it, is a worthwhile activity, and you better get on with it because everybody has the same ending. So, as self-aggrandizing as you want to be, your end is the same as everybody else. Okay, I think that's a very worthwhile teaching. So here's another teaching, this one,
Before
that
you go on,
conflicts. What was that?
I'd just like to point out,
Sure.
I'm picking up. This is the reason he only had one uh, thing documented.
Because,
His whole focus was being humble.
oh, whoa, that's a very interesting insight. So they didn't want to overexpose him.
He didn't want it.
Oh, he didn't want it. That
And
opens up.
everything I'll bet everything that came out of his mouth had to do with humility.
That's a very, very interesting insight. It's an interesting question because when the Mishnah, the oral law, was put together, it was a composites of teachings, etc., over a several hundred-year period. So it's hard to know. Did anybody ask Rabbi Levitas, "Do you want to be included?" You know, he could have the deciders of what's included could have been living 200 years after he passed away, and they never asked him. But maybe they intuited that with that kind of a teaching, maybe he wouldn't appreciate being overexposed in teachings, or he felt himself too humble to be quoted along with Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi this and Rabbi that. But that's a very interesting insight. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's no less interesting that maybe because of this teaching, it was decided to keep him to one teaching that packs a punch, even though we've heard the message before about humility, etc. So I like that. Thank you. So I was saying that this is yet another teaching that conflicts with the notions of modern society. So if you remember last week, um, um, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who is rich? Remember that? All that? Who is rich? The one who's satisfied with what they have. Who is strong? The one who can overcome their compulsions. Who is honored? The one who honors others. Who is this? The one who that kind of toppled societal definitions way over the top. And here's another one. This conflicts with the notions of modern society because modern society seems to value the loud, the showy, the ostentatious, the standout, the screamer, the one who enjoys publicity, draws attention to himself, herself. So Rabbi Levitas has a whole different take on how to present oneself before the public, no matter how much wisdom you have, no matter how powerful you are, how rich, fame, wealth, it's all vanity, he says, all vanity.
Yes.
Fun for the moment, great while it's happening. But it's all vanity, as the Solomonic book of Ecclesiastes says, vanity and vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So try not to get a vanity plate the next time you register your car. It's precisely when we understand our ultimate smallness, he would say, that we begin to relate more honestly to God and to our fellow human beings. So that's a very interesting idea. And I heard this expressed in a phrase that I don't recall exactly verbatim, but the idea is, God, comma, make me small so I can make you big. Or something like that. I remember it caught my attention. It's not exactly that, but make me in my own eyes smaller that I can make more room for you. There is a Kabbalistic concept that when God created the world, as he was creating, his glory filled the entire universe. So how did he create? He had to, the Hebrew word is tzimtzum, litzamtzem, which means he had to really condense himself, contract himself to make room for what he was creating. Contract himself to make more room. So that sounds very similar to this idea of Lord, comma, make me in my own eyes smaller so that I can perceive you as a bigger presence in my life. So the strife and the violence and warfare that engulf us and plague humanity, you may disagree, stem largely from arrogance, egotism, greed, jealousy, the desire to exert power and demonstrate lordship. And human beings, suggests Rabbi Levitas, cannot achieve redemption, not individually or as nations, until genuine ma'od humility prevails. When I was a rabbi in Stamford, Connecticut, I joined a hospice clergy team. That was for about 7 years. I didn't know much about hospice, but I learned a lot about it. And there were 3 of us. There was myself, a Roman Catholic minister, and a Methodist priest. And for those in those traditions that didn't have a clergyman, they weren't members of a church or synagogue, whatever, we became their spiritual guides if they wanted one. And I remember the Methodist minister was very much a wordsmith. And he compared the words magistrate and minister. And he says, a magistrate, you can tell by the first four letters, magi, is somebody, a magistrate needs to puff himself up in the eyes of the people in order for him to be recognized as a magistrate. But a minister minimizes himself. The magistrate puffs up, MAGI, and the minister minimizes. And I thought that was very interesting. So Rabbi Levitas would say arrogance, conceit have no place, especially for a person of faith. And the end of a person is physical decomposition wherever it occurs. So don't be so. There's a. It's not really Jewish or Yiddish. The phrase is, if somebody comes across as very arrogant, they would say to that person, if they had the guts, don't be so ay, ay, ay. I don't know if that, you ever heard of it or you use it. Don't be, I've heard it many times, sometimes directed towards me. Okay. It could have been very fitting, but don't be such an ay, ay, ay. Don't be, I think Rabbi Levitas would agree with that. Don't be such a. That's not why God created us, to fill his world with our lack of humility. And some of the greatest biblical characters are those who were exceedingly humble, such as Moses. God even says about Moses, was the most humble upon the face of the earth. Think of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, our foremothers, Deborah, Ruth, Naomi. Each of these reached their summit of excellence, yet each remained most humble and unassuming in spirit. I don't know how people do that, by the way. I don't know how you become the head of whatever, and you've got to tamp down a lot of ego if you're the head of a large company or mega situation, to not get caught up in the, individuals who have their own private jets. They get driven to the jet with a limousine. They go on the jet. They get off the jet with another limousine. They get driven to the place. They have guards guarding every step of the way. They have food prepared, and then they go back. And I, I don't know how people like that would tamp down what seems to be probably a pretty natural reaction, is to think of yourself as, wow, I'm a hoo-ha. To which people would say, don't be such an ay, ay, ay. So hoo-ha seems to be a universal language, as maybe as ay, ay, ay. Don't be such a, don't be such a. In this teaching, we're going to wrap up this teaching. In this teaching, Rabbi Levitas says you have to work on it ma'od ma'od. You have to work on it very, very hard. Very much should you be humble in spirit. And even if you have the reason to feel full of yourself because of fame or fortune, power, influence, prestige, whatever it is, or because your name is in the paper every day, because your wealth goes to many charities, your name is recognizable world over, for good or for not so good. A person should work ma'od ma'od, very hard, to keep that ego in check, and remember and acknowledge that all their blessings and fame and fortune come from heaven. One anecdote, and then I'll open it up for any questions, comments, etc. There's a woman in a nearby community where our older daughter and her family live. The community is called Ramat Beit Shemesh. She and her husband had a child who was in the army, and 3 weeks after the October 7th war began, he fell in battle. Young man, 19, 20, 21. She happens to be particularly gifted as a speaker, describing what happened, how she deals with it as a faithful woman. She happens to be a religious woman. How does she deal with it? And I heard her again. I've heard her a few times. Heard her again yesterday at a trauma and resilience conference in Jerusalem. So she spoke for about 15, 20 minutes, and I bet nobody in the room would have objected if she spoke for an hour and 20 minutes. She was that good, that inspiring. She was that captivating, engaging. She was so excellent. And she's a diminutive woman. She's not, very slender, not too hot, not too tall. And then she finished her remarks, which were beautiful, emotional, stirring. And she says, are there any questions? So when I hear that word after a lecture or a presentation, my hand pops up like a toast, a piece of toast. Boom! I think of myself as very inquisitive, curious. So she calls on, yes. I said, I have a question for you, but first of all, I want to know how in the world do you go through your experience? And I've heard you speak several times, which means you've probably spoken more times than the ones I've heard. She's likely presented dozens, maybe hundreds. I don't know. It's been 2 years. How do you do it? And she gave me the finger, is what she did. She said, that's how I do it. And I had many, many memorable occasions yesterday for things I learned to discuss with other people, whatever. But that so sticks with me, that she knows for herself it all comes from above, and that's a sign of humility. Is she always that way? Don't know her that well. But I thought that was a beautiful way to answer the question. Silent, just giving me the finger. It, thank God, was the correct finger. So I was very happy about that. Anyway, there's a little bit more to say, but it's past our hour. But I want to give an opportunity if anybody would like to add a comment, have a question, reaction. Happy to hear that. And don't think if you say anything that you are arrogant.
I don't even like. It's one of those things. Like I can tolerate it, but it's not like that.
I'm trying. Oh, I think okay. Yes, yes, Bob.
I've heard it said, not that I would say it, that it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way.
If you have a bumper sticker of that, I'd like to put it on my car. So, right. Yeah. So one teaching that I didn't get to regarding all this is that somebody once said, and I might have mentioned this before, somebody once said, how did it go? Humility. Give me a half a second. Yeah. Humility. Um, I don't know exactly where it is. Humility is not to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. Humility is not to think less of yourself, because you also shouldn't think of yourself as everybody's welcome mat and rug. That's not physically, mentally, emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy. You have to give yourself self-worth. You're a child of God, and boom, you're in. You're in with a certain measure of self-worth because of who you are and who created you. But humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And all of my students know that phrase because I keep on repeating it. And they quote it to me even before I say it. I say, humility is, and they finish it. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, reactions? Okay. So, as I say every week, it's great to get together. I appreciate the insights and the comments that some of you have made. Always happy to hear more. And I wish you a wonderful day. You should be happy, healthy, and safe wherever you are. And God willing, we'll get together again next Wednesday. I think the happy Thanksgiving for those who are celebrating. Um, I think there's the week of not next week, but the week after, my wife and I are away celebrating our 29th wedding anniversary. So it's unlikely that, but I'll let you know what date that is. And then we have Hanukkah. We may have family gatherings at this time where we usually meet. So I will update you on all of that. But in the meantime, whatever you're doing tomorrow, enjoy it. Have great pleasure with it. Enjoy families and company and friends. And let's hope for the great redemption. Personally,
Rabbi,
I think it's time, but nobody asked me.
Rabbi, I'd like to
Yes.
share one thing.
Okay.
Lord willing, I'll be in Israel for Hanukkah. I'll
Yes.
be there from the 10th until the 26th.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yes, so praise God. I'll get a chance to enjoy that and hopefully see you during that time period. And I'm
Well,
really looking forward to it.
thank you. Us too. Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun to be sitting next to me while we do this?
Yes, let's make it happen.
Okay. If we can, I think that would be a hoot. And any of you that are in Israel on a Wednesday, we all sit here and talk to everybody else and gain and inspire each other. So just be well. Take care. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying. And God willing, we'll see you next week.
Shalom.
God bless.
Shalom, everybody. Be well. Be
All
well.
right, Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Have a great week.
All right, you guys too. Bye bye.
Thank you.